Okay, I appear to be on lines. Happy Monday. still trying to still trying to finish some stuff here with the hex stocking stuff. I've been struggling, and I'm still not sure I'm 100% where I want to be with the point values for habitation, specifically community. Has kind of been bedeviling me. So communities are your settlements, essentially, and the let's see the hurdle that I have gotten to is that I my system of giving hexes attributes. I think I'm really happy with it. I like what it does, but there's one issue, and that is that those attributes are set up essentially in opposition to things. So places, you're measuring how dangerous places are. You're measuring how difficult they are to move through. You're measuring how scarce resources are to find in there. You're measuring, how dangerous they are. And for communities, that poses a little bit of of an issue, because with a community, at least my thinking, and really it's irrelevant, or it doesn't matter whether it's a friendly community to the party or unfriendly. When I look at the danger of a place, I'm really just thinking of, this is how dangerous it is for, basically anything. I mean, presumably you could have exceptions of, I guess maybe, to be honest, right, I'm looking at it from a human perspective. Maybe if you're living in the swamps, that would be super, dangerous or super tough for people to live in. But if you're a lizard person, then maybe it's home. And maybe I may have to make some kind of, might have to say, hey, if maybe you have a natural, if you have a natural, I don't know, aptitude's not the right word. If it's your kind of your natural habitat, then maybe we have to say, okay, we'll fit the numbers. But essentially, keeping in just, let's just say for right now, our assumptions are that you're not particularly native to any, you could live anywhere, but you're not native to any particular spot. And when I look at things like how scarce resources are, that's for everybody. It's not just for player characters. It's not just for whatever. So for communities, since there's a bunch of individuals who are sitting in a spot and are trying to develop that spot, obviously, if how do you measure with my attributes that are negative, kind of positive things? And right now, I've sort of looked at, like, maybe we should use scarcity. So before I'd gone to activity. At kind of the beginning, I just was throwing peril in there, but really I think it's more activity. I was using activity. I was like, okay, well, how active is the hex? And I think that could be something that we still use, but the issue with activity is it's not really a pro community thing. It's really activity of kind of danger stuff, because it's all, as I just said, everything is sort of a negative. It's pushing against people doing stuff. I think maybe, I guess that's ultimately, like, all these attributes are really all against pushing, where some terrain or environment is pushing against things being there, regardless of what those things are. Whether it's friendly or unfriendly to the player characters, doesn't matter. It's like, this is nature saying, yeah, this is a harsh environment, period. So I thought, well, activity doesn't really work. It's kind of the amount of stuff that comes through, but not really. I wasn't really meaning in terms of people. I was thinking more in terms of creatures, like how many sort of wandering critters are going to be floating through there. Now, I suppose it does work also for people, but that's not really what it's meant for. So you get something like a clear hex or a farmland hex, basically has ones, would be ones across the board, sort of like grasslands, right? So it's not, resources are not very scarce. You're not getting, because you have kind of open terrain, you can see everything. Things aren't jumping up on you all the time. Kind of wide open sort of spaces. So, and I think what I'm trying to look at the communities is, those are the places where communities should be in a sense. They should be in these open spaces, more or less, and open. It's not like that's how the world was made, but we're not doing a history that we talked about. You see below on the page, turning conflicts into history, but not looking from the beginning of the creation, but more like from whenever our game starts. Hey, Brian. So I assume a lot that when we're talking a clear kind of space, that it has been cleared. Like it might have once been woodlands, but now it's been flattened and it's clear. So in those situations, that's kind of where like, oh yeah. So if you get a clear space, you can look and say that's was already been cleared out. And you put if you happen to have something there, then great. That's where the people will be, right? That's where it would be good. And then of course we could look at things like rivers, lakes, and coasts, which I think just by virtue of them, I think lend themselves. I'm trying to sort of simulate, in a sense, the fact that that's where civilizations tended to kind of, where civilizations and just you tend to put settlements. You're moving up waterways is the easiest way, pretty much, to travel around, especially if you don't know your surrounding. You haven't built up anything. You travel up and down waterways. It's great for transporting cargo and especially things that are heavy and of course people. So I want to favor rivers and lakes and coastal regions, and also it just adds another. Well, one, you get water is obviously super important, and then also it adds another food source because you could potentially have fish or whatever else you're eating that's in the river, lake, or coastal region. So that's kind of where I'm at. But I've been going back and forth on that kind of starting number. And then the amounts I want, because if I look at minor, so let's take minor for a minute. So right now, which I just typed in a minute or so ago, a minute before I went live, right? So I'm trying this where I'm dividing stuff by scarcity. And the reason I'm using the numbers kind of make sense by default. And of course, you can come up with whatever numbers you want. But if we look at sort of the default measurements, you see that basically the hardest ones are your threes. So your mountains, your deserts, your jungles, your swamps, right? They're your threes. So I'm just picked a number that was fairly easily to divide by three. So if you end up with a minor settlement in a place that's very scarce, you end up with about 30, or you end up with 40 points, which we come down, look here, we worked at before. That ends up, you can get a walled village. Oh, look at that. Right. So I think that makes sense. And I suppose it could be less if you took away the ditch. You could have 30 points, in which case you could just have the ditch. You could have that going on. So, that's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, what kind of is the minimum? But I guess the issue that I'm running into, and I'm not sure, and I'm happy to take suggestions or at least ideas, is right now points is used. Well, I mean, I just showed for both populating with defenses and things like that, and kind of features, right? So you get remember we looked at before is, okay, we want some like defenses, or we want some special effects. Those all cost points, but people cost points too. And I'm wondering what to do with that. Critters. So a 10th level fighter. I think if I'm using, where's my, a 10th level fighter, or if we wanted to go, what is it, 8th level when maybe it's 8th level when you officially you become a lord. I don't remember exactly what level. Let's say it's 8. Say it's instead of 10. Well, actually 10's a more even number. So a 10th level fighter would cost 8 points per hit die. So they would be 80 points. So if you couldn't have one, on in that sort of, if we go back to our example of, we have some walled village in some kind of dangerous jungle, that would be, they would have 40 points, and they might be able to upgrade. So I do have, like, you're on a river or lake, or you're on a coast, you get to bump up one. So that's one way. Obviously, that makes it that, okay, you got some more stuff. Though even then, you'd end up with 60 points, right? So that would be enough. 60 points wouldn't get you I guess the other thing is you don't have to have an 8th level fighter, whatever it is, or a 10th level. What did I say it was? Say a 10th level fighter. You don't have to have one. And I think what I was also going to say is normals maybe. Yeah, I think if you, no, because I do want people to pay. I do want you to pay. I want you to pay. Normals only cost 1 point. Normals only cost 1 point. I gotta figure out some maths. This is some grape aid spinger for the working man. So kind of there are a couple ways I could attack this. One way to attack it is to separate out stuff from creatures. This has the advantage of now I don't have to worry so much about it. I can give some amount of points, and I could even have, and this is certainly a possibility, I could even have it come up as its own sort of thing, if you will. I'm just looking for that. I'm looking for an article. I'm looking for an article back in this Wargaming mag, which I looked at before. So I could split up basically your fortification points from your inhabitant points. The advantage is you get a couple more levers you can pull, and we could even have another sort of category for things. That might be one way to do it. But the downside, obviously, with that is, maybe it's not obvious. The downside is then you're balancing more numbers, right? The accounting increases, so you're doing multiple kind of maths as opposed to one math. That would be one thing to do it. I'm thinking one possibility is that we could put maximum numbers on the amount of people, depending on what size, what's the word I'm looking for? Depending on the magnitude. Ooh, I like that. Okay, I gotta use that. Magnitude. You could have a max number of people. So that could be another one. And here I'm going back and forth on whether I should be doing, I guess not that they're the first to do it, but they're the first one that comes to mind at the moment. That the sort of Shadow Dark method of going up and down rows on your table, which is a very easy way to do it, but you definitely lose some granularity unless I'm going to have a bunch of rows, which I don't want to do. Then these moves are pretty significant. You drop down, you're cutting basically your points in half with each one of these drops. So you don't have very far to kind of rise or fall. It's not that granular, but it's certainly one way to do it. I could put some caps. And the nice thing with caps on it is that they will encourage some differentiation. So let me give an example. So if we say, let's say for minor communities, that they can have a maximum number of people of, say, I don't know. I was going to pick one from this article that I looked at a while back with the medieval settlement stuff, which is somewhere. Hold on a minute, I gotta find it now. No, it's not Middle East 48. Thanks. Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Is this it? No. No. Hold on. Hold on. Wait a minute. What page is it on? I should go to the table of contents. That's always never a bad choice to go to table of contents. I'm looking at, just in case you happen to have this one, I'm looking at Wargaming number 4, which I don't know, it was published when. And I'm looking for Populating a Medieval Fantasy World by Arnold Hendrick, which is actually on page 9. I was way back. Okay, here we go. So I think Arnold has some nice numbers in here for basically the amount of people. So we're talking a small manor is basically between, I don't know, the very, very small end is 78, the tall end is 213. So maybe it makes sense to not, I don't know, yeah, because I'm trying to think, because I think for, how do we want to do this? So maybe I got to split this up that the costs are going to be different. I think I got to do a couple things. I think I got to make some costs that are different for each one of these. Colony, they're animals. That's very simple. They're not doing any defenses, right? They don't have anything like that. It's just amount of people, the amount of individuals. I think, and I would imagine that. Well, you don't have to be. I know they have animals that are synergistic with each other. So you're going to find this animal next to that animal. Like you'll find those sucker fish or whatever they're called. I think on sharks and thing, right? But they're mostly going to be homogenous and whatever. When it comes to communities and coverts, they're going to be mixed. And then maybe it makes sense. Maybe it makes sense to then, when we're looking at creatures, kind of what creatures are we talking about? Because there's, what do we call them? Non-combatant types. And I don't know, because I don't want to mean, they are, yes, they are non-combatants. I guess we could look at combatants versus non-combatants. And then we could have some numbers there. So a covert, where some den of thieves is hanging out, is not going to have very non-combatants. They might have some, but they're not going to have too many. Whereas a city or town is going to have a lot of non-combatants, but we're not concerned about them in terms of the pricing so much. I don't care how many, buying a bunch of farmers, like that's not really that doesn't really enter into the formidability of the hex. Yes, at the extreme it does if you just want to do, the mobs attack but ultimately I'm really concerned about the sort of essentially the fighting force. Like who can they bring to bear in a hostile situation? So you're not the infirm, not the, children, not if there's some separation between, the women don't fight or the women only fight, something like that, right? But I'm probably gonna have to. I think I'm gonna have to split this up. I'm guessing. So let me do that. I can't think. That's kind of the easiest thing to do, and that way you don't end up, because who wants to spend all their points buying farmers and stuff? Nobody wants to do that. That is not fun. That is not a fun exercise. I don't think. I don't need. Yeah, I don't need this one. Delete that column. Magnitude. Yeah, these I think end up being bolded, and they shouldn't have been. Yeah, so this will work, I think. This will work in terms of, part of me also feels like I'm doing, it's not really necessary, but oh, I got to get my shortcuts straight. Oops. Auto fit. No, evenly distributed columns. There we go. Okay. Oops. Do that here as well. All right, it's already done. Cool. All right, so now I can, let's make a little header so I can remember what I'm talking about here. What we're dealing with non-combatants. And this is probably, okay. All right, non-combatants. I don't care about. I mean, I suppose with creatures you could too, colonies, but I'm not going to get. I don't know if it's really worthwhile trying to track. It's communities. I think is and maybe coverts too. I think it's more important, or it's. I mean, importance. I don't even. I think there's more. The data is more useful for that. Maybe if you walk into I don't know a colony of pigeons and you're interested to know how many young birds are there from older birds, whatever, or just how many. But all the birds are probably going to swarm you. The birds are more or less going to act the same, other than maybe obviously the ones that can't chicks. But that to me it's not that important. Whereas or gameable for the most part. Whereas with a town or a village, one of the first questions someone's probably going to ask is, well, how many people are here? Like, how big is the village? How many homes? Um, so maybe that's some. So we have minor, and we can dice this out, I think. So let's see what kind of numbers we have. So we can, if I look at these numbers, and they're talking households, which I think is going to be around 7. I think. Does that seem right? What do they say? What do they say? Typical peasant family. Okay, yeah. 5 persons. All right, we'll do 5. So 5 people per household. And we've got pigeon census. Yes, exactly. Gotta have the pigeon census. Actually, you know what? I can. Does that work? Kind of works. Because then I could put my note about how big a household is there if I could. Okay, so if we do that, now I can make a note. Yeah, so a households. Household is assumed to be 5 individuals, or if you want to dice it out, we could say, let's say, well, what's a good number? We do 2d6. I think I was doing 2d6 minus 2. Because you end up with, 3.5, 3.5, 7, or 8 minus 2. Yeah. I know you can end up with empty houses, but that's fine. If it's an extreme case, to an average household has 5 individuals. Individuals, you can use 2d6 minus 2 if you need to figure that out. Okay, that's fine. And then, so we can have here we can have individuals. We can actually use individuals. What's a good number for us? A minor? Every time I do something. All right, we're going to do, 1d6. I actually think like 1d6 Yeah, non-combatant. We're non-combatants. So we're not talking about the members of the cabal, or we're talking about how many they might have that aren't part of it. I'm going to say like it's not. It's going to be very small. Medium-sized individuals. And then, oh, I don't know, 3D. So in the covert, you're just going to have some, not a lot, just a few. A few. And then for the community, we still want to use the scarcity. So if we took the high number for a small, say 300, well, that's house. All right, that's households, right? 300, because they have something like, oh, I don't know, what do we have here? So yeah, 300. So we can start off with, well, miners can't be that small. That's got to be kind of lesser, I would say. Sorry, because these are your villages, right? Did I put in there? Um, or is lesser villages? I think greater is towns. Minor is like really small stuff, right? What did I say? Something? did I uh, did I make a point of what that was? Or at least where my head was at with that. Might not have. I might not have. All right. Yeah. So more than 10,000. I guess we can roll dice too. Do people want to roll dice for this? That's a good question. I'm not sure. All right. Yeah. So we're gonna start. What's a small manor? We'll say 300. I'm gonna say 300. That's fine. 300 house. $300 households divided by scarcity. Large, lesser. Talking about, say, 600. I'm gonna use houses. Oh, that doesn't actually help, so never mind. And then we've got, yeah, we'll go, whoops, 1,200 plus households. Do people want the? So here's the question, I guess, which I'm not sure about. I think there's probably no right answer. I suppose for I'll throw some dice in here. So it would be 1d6 times 100. This would be 2d6 times 100. And then, yeah, I guess 3d6. So I end up with something like that, which I think works okay. You can roll some dice. These are not the people, you know, not the people you're going to be dealing with for the most part. And then if you want to roll up individual houses, can. Just as well. Let's end up something like that. Oops. Okay, so that kind of. I could kind of drag this down for right now. Group it together as well. Okay. What? There we go. Why are you doing that to me? Okay. All right. I know. Riveting stream here. So we're only dealing with the people who are, I want to say the important people. The important people. No. The folks who are going to be in the sort of defensive, who is defending this place from this place. But I think I'm okay with it to a certain extent about the main defenders. If there is something, a village is under attack, of course everybody's going to pick up arms, whatever, right? Maybe non-combatants isn't the right word. I wonder if there's a way to do a pyramid. Now this has me. Let me just see something. Hey, Hangry Dwarf. Riveting is in the eye of the beholder. You love this? Well, great. I appreciate it. Glad to hear it. Okay, so I something just occurred to me. Whether we'll see how it works. I want to open. I thought I had it open. Yes, I did. Oh, it's over here. Okay, let me close out what I've got here. Well, I'm gonna bring this over into the window so you can see it in a second. Okay, so I'm just bringing over this. I'm gonna just open up a new thing. That's fine. Yep. And I'm going to let's make a triangle of sorts. Let's triangulize this thing. All right. Here, and I'll explain. You have a food pyramid and things, right? Okay. Right? Yeah, like, oh yeah, we have this many of this many people, this many of the other kind of people, right? Or people, creatures. And then we all get the circle of life. Right. I can view. All right, I'll just open it more. Okay, so if we have our pyramid, and I'm just going to let's draw some lines in our pyramid here. So if we have our pyramid, let's use the pencil tool. I can use and we have something like that. Maybe something like that. Right? So we throw in some text here to explain ourselves, we might have, the rank and file. Rank and file. And I'm trying to keep it vague because maybe we'll see this. We could have different. If this concept kind of works, we might be able to use it for coverts, which is again are things like cabals and gangs and things like that, as opposed to settlements. So we have our rank and file. Then we might have our sergeants. I was capping everything and I stopped. Sergeants. Whoops. The wrong window. Sergeants. I don't know if this even makes sense. Oh, something like that. Okay, so we've got our rank and file, which is so we're right. If we're doing the food pyramid thing, we might say, the whole pyramid, is 100%. Something like that. But then each one of these, we could say, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I want 3 for reasons that I will explain. I don't want 4. So I'm going to just make this leaders. I mean, and you'll see this will be pretty basic. We're just going to kind of bump this. Yeah, I know. I don't know if sergeants is better than leaders, something like that. So we could say that for the rank and file, we're going to talk about 3 and 6. And then we could talk about, I don't know, 2 and 6. And then we have 1 and 6 here. I don't know if this ultimately works. I may need to ditch this X and 6 because it works really great for 3s like this and 2s, but getting to 4s and 5s and things, and it doesn't work that well. So gotta but we'll try this, and we can look at some examples. So if we have 100% of our community here, I did it again. That's what I get from having window on top of window. So far, our community is here. We can move all this down. This is our community. Right. Then we've got half, a third, or half, a third, and then a sixth. Half, a third, and a sixth. 3 and 6, 2 and 6, 1 and 6. So now let's grab some. We can kind of grab some numbers. Numbers. Maybe we can grab some kind of number. So if we go back and say, okay, we're starting off in a small. A minor. We have a minor community, Ugh, okay, now I got to turn off the caps. Minor community. That was, I think we said 300 divided by scarcity houses. Or I think we said 1d6 times 100. Something like that. And yeah, I mean, if I'm going to be super keen on the math, it's going to be like that. And this is where I'm going to want to look at, I did it again. This is where I'm going to want to look at, we'll get this down. This is how you kind of have to do it. At least I have to do it. I kind of got to get it down, and then I can see about, can I simplify it down? Because I prefer not to have to write that out in the thing. It's not super hard math or anything. I think it's pretty easy, actually. But, if I can get it down to something else, I will. But if I can't, I can't. So we look at that, and we can just say this is an average of basically so in a, let's just say, okay, let me do this. Let's pick a what's so 3.5. So this would be 3.5 is your average on a 1d6. Okay, so that would be 350 divided by scarcity. So if we're so remember, farmland is basically, or grassland is 1, jungle, desert, mountains is 3. So if we start with 350 and we divide that by 3, we get, I don't know, Alexa, 350 divided by 3.
350 divided by 3 is approximately 116.6667.
All right, I'm not interested. So we'll say 117 houses in a resource, I don't know, poor terrain. We'll just say that. So, okay, so we end up with 117 houses in a resource poor terrain. So now if we say that half of those, just get out a calculator. What am I doing here? Half of those are your rank and file. So your farmers, whatever. So we would say, all right, 117 divided by, or whoops, I should just maybe 117 times 0.5 equal to, no, I didn't do that right. 117 times 0.5 equal to 58. So we'll say 58 homes. So we could say we end up with 58 homes of general citizenry. Okay, and then we have right, and then we could go back to, I think we can go back. We should be able to go back to our same number, 117 times 0.334, and we get about 39 homes of let's see, I don't always say minor. What do we call them? 39 homes of, I don't know, what do we call them? Minor leaders? No, that doesn't seem right. It doesn't necessarily have to be an aristocracy, just, I'll just call them sergeants. We'll just say sergeants. Or I suppose maybe this would say of, I don't know. I'll just put sergeants. We'll have to figure this out. These numbers might not fit. It feels like that's too high, but we'll see. And then we end up with leader, some kind of leadership would be 117 times. Actually, what did I do that right? 117 times. No, yep, I did something wrong. 117 times. Oh, no. What am I doing? Stop. Oh, there we go. I was hitting the wrong clear. 117 times 0.167 with 19. Yeah, that's too much. I think you end up with too much. Because what I'm thinking at is you have a village of 117 homes. You would have 39, at least 39 kind of I don't know, I'm going to call them active personnel, militia. Militia is not the right word either. Does this have anything to say? I don't think this goes into the details of that kind of thing. I don't think that works. Unfortunately for me, I don't think that works. I think you end up getting with too much. You get too many people, or too many sort of fighting types. Now, I'm curious what the Castle Guide has to say, if it has anything with populations that might be useful. So in the Castle Guide, which was an AD&D 2nd edition rules supplement, we've got they've got a whole bunch of stuff on constructing castles, but that's not what I'm looking for. They have some unusual castles. Well, let's see, social classes, members in court. No, it's fine, but it's not numbers. I need hard numbers. Hard numbers, pal. Hard numbers. Let's see what they say here. Stuff on taxes, which is nice. Okay, the feudal setting, a day in the life of the peasant. That's fine. Wonderful. Okay, we got getting some stuff in the days of nights, in the days of high adventure, but that's also not what I want. Tournaments, all good. All right, and we get into castles, but I don't think it tells us about the amount of people. Get a whole bunch of stuff on castle-y stuff, but not necessarily our kind of castle-y stuff. Okay, buildings, drawbridges, all kinds of good stuff. This is a handy book. I do appreciate it. It's got some good stuff, but you always see that stuff that you end up thinking like, oh man, I wish it had this, and it really kind of seems to have sort of glossed over the how many folks actually live around these places. I do have another book that might suffice for this, though, if I really can't find it. It doesn't look like it's going to give it to me. Give it to me. It's got warfare, which is great, but pretty detailed, but not. I don't think it has, unless it has numbers, which I don't think it does. Nope. God. I mean, you get a table for what species the miner is and how much they can mine, which is great. But you want to find out, well, how many people live in a town around here? It's like, sorry, can't help you with that one, pal. Yeah, really, I feel like it totally just we're not even going to worry about how many people are here, which is not necessarily terrible. I mean, it's definitely it's fine, but I kind of like to know how many people live around there. So we're going to put that one aside, and we're going to go to option 2. Now, I have the AD&D DMG, but it's not in front of me. Unfortunately, that's the bad. So now I'm going to look in the World Builder's Guidebook, and I'm going to see if this has some numbers. I feel like it might. It seems to be the kind of book that will have it. So I'm going to try looking at page 68. You have your copy. Andy, you can check it out also. 68. Okay, is this 68? It is. Cities and towns, landforms, size and population. Okay. All right. So they do. So they do something interesting. So in the World Builders Guidebook, they give us a table, but they decide that they want blocks of 500 people. So here we go. For our purposes, the most important aspect of town building is deciding the size of the community in terms of population. Towns with a high population can support more specialized traders, craftsmen, and stores. The presence of a high number of consumers allows for uncommon services or trades. Generally, small villages and hamlets are unlikely to support anything more sophisticated than a blacksmith, wainwright, or cooper. Fine tailors and jewelers require a greater number of potential customers in order for their businesses to thrive. There are a number of factors governing population density. You may have already generated some very detailed information about social level, surrounding climate, and type of subsistence available to the people of the community earlier in this book. We have not. Or if you wish to simply use a random roll, yes, please, we got you on table 35 below. Note that the population levels are given in blocks of 500 people. All right, so if you're a village, they say to roll a d4, then subtract 3. And if you get 0, which is actually would be pretty common because the average on a d4 is 2.5, so 2.5 minus 3, you're going to get below 0. But they say if you get 0 or less, then it's a hamlet, and the levels are basically 20 to 20 to 400 people. So there you have your cities, towns, and villages. Now, they don't seem to have any advice. Yeah, they don't really. God, it's really interesting what they give you, what these books give you, and what they don't. So we get castles here. So here they kind of these books, man. It's just so fascinating. So you get this castle guide, which gives you all kinds of stuff with castles and warfare and stuff, but then neglects to tell you anything about the surrounding area. Basically leaves it up to you to determine whether it's, got a village or a town or whatever, or how, it just, and here, and then this book, World Builder's Guidebook, kind of goes the other way with it, where you just get a paragraph on castles and strongholds. It's just basically like, oh yeah, and they'll build things kind of related to the size of the population. They just rattle off some statistics, some potential factors, I should say, but without any kind of tables or rolls or anything, even though you have these numbers. So it's really kind of interesting that you get different, what each book prioritizes information it's giving you. Obviously, something called the Castle Guide, the priorities on the castle, but I don't think knowing the surrounding estate, I think, is kind of part of the castle to me. The castle and its environs, and it doesn't give it to you. World Builder's Guidebook gives you all stuff about the world. I would think that castles and those things are part of the world. You're going to want to world build them on also, but then doesn't give it to you. And they're not, I believe the World Builder's Guidebook is not second edition, or is it? I don't think it is. I think it's AD&D Prime. What year did this come out? Does it say? Might not. But they're not the same edition, I don't think. So it's not like they were. Well, actually, maybe it is. No, hold on. Maybe is it? Oh, I guess it is second edition, even though it doesn't say it. They're written differently because this says it came out in 1996, and it mentions Dark Sun, Birthright, Ravenloft, Spelljammer, Al-Qadim, Planescape, all that stuff. So it is definitely second ed. The Castle Guide came out when? Out of curiosity. Castle Guide came out in 1990. Okay, so the Castle Guide came out first. World Builder's Guidebook came out second. They don't even reference each other either. I don't know why. I do have another option, which is going into my falling apart version of Chivalry and Sorcery to see if they say anything about what the heck I'm doing. So we'll take a look. I know they have numbers for. I mean, they got numbers for all kinds of stuff, but my book's falling apart. So we've got the fief on page 16, but I don't think that's going to be it. And man, the writing on this is so tiny. It's a little bit. Just would love. There's a little bit more. Okay, so we do get some numbers here. SFMH, small fortified manor house. 50. So I'm not okay. What do they call? I just want to get our terms. So we do have some stuff here that we can use. But they don't they're using their own thing. What I mean by their own thing is they're using their own stuff. So here we have in Chivalry and Sorcery, we've got our small fortified manor house, your lowest level one, and I don't know how they came up with those numbers. So I don't have no idea whether this is the accuracy of such, but they're numbers. They talk about fief holders, which I'm not sure what they mean. So you have fief holders, petit sergeant, yeomans, serfs, and then in terms of personnel. Well, in terms of personnel, they give you a lot. They give you a bunch of essentially the retinue to the land home, the lord, I guess. So the categories we have are knights, squires, sergeants, men at arms, blacksmiths. Okay, they give a bunch of, I guess, services. So blacksmith, armor, scribes, chaplains. What's mercenaries. And then we have fief holder, which I'm not sure what that refers to. Petit sergeant, yeoman, and serfs. So let me just write this down here. So if we look at, let's I'm about to make the same mistake I've been making. Not do that again. So let's just say here. So a small, oops. So in chivalry and sorcery, chivalry and sorcery, small fortified manor house. This would be the low end, the very lowest end, according to that, is I guess I'll just write it out. So we got one sergeant, no, one squire. Sorry, one squire, one sergeant, 10 men at arms, one, I guess I'll keep the blacksmith in here, even though I'm not sure I would want to include that. One blacksmith, and then 4 petit sergeant, 10 yeomen, 50 serfs. I'm gonna combine them together for myself, and that's it. Okay, so that's the kind of numbers we get, which would essentially be, if we were to look at our rank and file. Hey Ryan, not quite a campaign prep stream, more like a material prep stream. I'm working on this. I suppose I should kind of reset that. I'm working on the hex for my Joy of Hex maps. I'm trying to finalize the beta hex stocking rules for it, and I've been going back and forth on basically how to populate communities, which are basically your settlements. And I gotta hold on a minute. My cat is trying to get out of the room and driving me nuts. Hold on a second, Betty. You Betty Blue. All right, go on. All right. So I'm looking at different ways to figure out how many how many things a community can support in terms of personnel and sort of defenses and whatnot. I've been going back and forth with the kind of point system that I've been developing, and I'm just not totally happy with it. There's just some things around the edges that I'd love to kind of fix. Not fix is right. We're just tweak, I guess. So looking at chivalry and sorcery is the way, yeah, which ends up being, we end up having, let's say, 1, 2, 12. I'm going to take the blacksmith out of the, so let's, I don't know what a petit sergeant is in this. I don't know. Do I have a, can I open up a window? What was a medieval petit sergeant? You can help me there. Hey, Terrence. Medieval petty sergeant or petty sergeantry or petit sergeant was a type of land tenure in feudal society that requires the holder to perform a specific duty or service, which would generally lend it less significant than that of a grand sergeant. Okay, so that might, but it's different than a. Should I ask what a? That seems to be. Open that up. So, what was a fief holder? Because I would have thought that would have been a. Medieval fief holders. Okay, that's just a vassal. So they. All right. So specific duty, and I guess, but less military service and loyalty. So I guess that's okay. All right. So kind of different levels of the same sort of thing. Ryan says, I've been running Fallout 2D20. They have a pretty comprehensive set of mechanics for settlement management. It might be some overlap that inspires from there. I'll have to check it out. I don't have the Fallout one, but I'll take a look. For sure, for sure. Yeah, I love that stuff. Okay, so what we could say. So basically, if we were going to look at our sergeants, looking at chivalry and sorcery, this kind of non-rank and file. And I'm again, okay, let's do some things here. I'm going to put this together. So 60 peasants. And I think they mean actual people. So we're just going to say 12 peasant houses. Now we've got, that's the rank and file. Terrence asks, how many times can you get away with another settlement needs our help before your group physically assaults you? That's a good question. I think the trick is that each one, the settlements need help against each other, and then you have to pick and choose. Though and it's funny in the game I play in, we are kind of helping out different things, but they actually really haven't asked for our help. We're just doing it anyway. It's just the way it goes. So if we had leaders, we have kind of one. Right. In this case, we're talking about sort of one leader. All right. So let's call, what we're going to call these? We're going to call them tenants. We'll see if maybe this will help split up. So one tenant houses, men in arms. So the men in arms, blacksmith. I don't care about the blacksmith right now. It's more of a service thing. Squire, a sergeant, 10 men at arms, 4 petit sergeant, 12 tenant arms. So the sergeant and the petit sergeant, those would be your sergeants. So okay, so let's get the lingo straight here. So we're gonna call this tenants. Ryan says in the group they didn't need a Preston. The players were pretty aggressive and bordering on raider behavior. We use a virtual team with map assets, so it becomes pretty streamlined. That's cool. I don't play with any of the map stuff. Not I'm not anti necessarily. I just haven't played it, so I'm lucky to be able to play in person. Oops, I guess I probably should say this in person with the group, the main group that I'm playing with. And then this is but I have played online with other stuff, though. I just did Theater of the Mind. I just find it easier to just to manage for myself. I don't want to spend a bunch of time. If I'm going to prep stuff, what I don't want to prep is things like battle map assets and stuff like that. I don't care. I don't care enough for that. I'd rather prep, to me, the stuff that counts. But I mean, they're when you have them, they're lovely. I just don't tend to want to invest that time myself. It's a personal choice. So we have leadership. Squire is a leadership. I guess would be up in leaders. So that'd be if you count that. Well, the Lord is not counting here, right? So that we might say this is two times leaders, 12 times tenant homes. I don't know what we do. The men at arms would be. And we'll just call this 5. Sergeants. And then men at arms 10. Can we get some rough numbers out of this? I might need to split this up into more things. Might need to split this up. Oh, you Ryan says he recreated Fallout 1 with the original game assets. Wow. That's awesome. Okay, let's see if we can get some kind of roughage numbers out here. So we've got really it's one lead. The Squire is really more of an assistant, right? We'll say 1 leader. And here's why I don't know. I don't know that I don't think 10 men at arms seems like a lot for a tiny thing. Elder Goblin Game says, what makes a hex stocking suffer? Did you mean a stocking stuffer? Or do you want to know what makes someone who stocks hexes suffer? And I would say stuff like this makes them suffer, for sure. For sure. Okay, well, let's see. So this would be our minimum. This seems like too much. I mean, the men at arms. The men at arms seems like too big of a count, unless the men at arms are being pulled. This is unfortunately where you end up in those situations where the resources, there's not much. How many men at arms did a minor lord employ in the Middle Ages? Like, I don't think we're going to get good answers out of this. I always find this is where you get these fuzzy numbers. Varied significantly. I just said minor. Oh, it says 10. Well, look at that. All right. Well, I have been firmly reprimanded by the search engines. Okay. By ChatGPT has backed up chivalry and sorcery. All right. Well, I guess we'll do it. So, all right. So 10, but do you need, well, I guess this is where the petit sergeant and the regular sergeant come in handy. Because, yeah, 1 sergeant and 10 men at arms. That makes sense, like 1 per 10. So this guy is leading these guys, is what I'm guessing they mean. I don't know what they mean because the petit sergeant seems to be required a specific duty, but doesn't necessarily mean doesn't really mean. I don't think it was military. I'm gonna guess. Does it say anything? Okay, so the historian Mary Battison said they were neither always military nor always agricultural, but might approach very closely to the service of knights or the service of farmers. They're sort of farmer plus or knight minus a free servantship, a menial servant. Um, a menial servant. So where would we put that? I'm not sure where to put that. 'Cause I'm trying to be, I want to be kind of vague. I don't want to be quite tied into. So 12 times 10 in houses, I'm in. Can we say something? Maybe get a number? A leader? Ten men. I'm trying to keep D6s too. So 10 doesn't work. 12 works great. 10, not so much. So this is definitely my maths here are going to have to be shifted. So if we end up with, maybe I just have to do them separately and just say you're going to have this many homes. Well, their numbers are much smaller, which I do kind of like. Their numbers are pretty darn small. The tiniest is, so if we look at my book falling apart. Going back to these numbers, if we look at these, basically interior manors or frontier manors. Like frontier manors actually have more people, I think, right? We get up to essentially 300. Yeah, something like that. It's kind of, I think the numbers on that level are kind of pretty close to what I had here too. Averaging out like basically 3, if you said, say 3, 6, 12 kind of thing. Or actually, there's more. Actually, theirs is bigger. They get up to about 400, splitting up because they have yeomen and serfs split up. But I don't care. I don't care about that so much. I'd love to read more about what the heck the petit sergeant are supposed to be doing because I'd love to kind of think about this kind of weird, this idea that they're sort of in between. They're kind of military, maybe. They're kind of agricultural. Maybe they're basically servants. I guess we should put them down as servants. Might be a good way to do it. Mayhaps. All right. I don't know that was. I'm trying to think. I don't know how fruitful that actually was. Look, I'm not gonna say that. So what did we figure out here? We got on the small. This is the smallest. I think I'm just gonna have to kind of break this out more. So I have 3 levels here. Mine are lesser and greater, and those are kind of what I'm calling magnitudes. The magnitude of your settlement, and then I suppose I could have I think I just got to. You know what I'm going to do? Okay, I think this is what I have to do. Methinks this is what I'm going to have to do. I think I'm going to have to. I'm calculating points here, which maybe I just need to calculate the magnitudes first. And you're going to figure out where you are here. And then we could figure out the size here. Something like that. Something like that. We might need to figure out the... I might need to flip this table around, actually. I might need to do that. Yeah, because okay, here's my thought. Because what I'm trying to do here is you're filling up this hex map. You're stocking your hexes, and you might be in a spot which has resources are scarce and it's dangerous. So the quandary or the excuse me, the quandary, the situation, the problem is that okay, I've got some dangerous ass swamp that I've generated, and lo and behold, there's a settlement there. There's some kind of community there. What kind of shape does that community take? And you end up in a little bit of the kind of solution. The problem I'm solving for was really an opportunity to think about. Well, you run up into the little village in the swamp, and the interesting question of, well, how do they survive here? This place is freaking dangerous. How'd they do it? Assuming they didn't kill everything off and turn it into a parking lot. So you go, okay, well, maybe they have some high level fighter wizard, some high level classed creature, high HD or high level class character is taking care of them. Well, they've got some cleric, and the cleric and whatever, and okay, they've mapped it down. They've kind of clamped down on it and got that area sort of stable, and boom, there's your village. Or, which we talked about and we worked on Friday, was like, well, maybe they've got some kind of spell protecting them. There's some kind of spell effect that they have. I went through and we created some tables and things for looking at, okay, well, what is that? What kind of mystical stuff could they have? And one example was maybe they're under some kind of invisibility effect, so that if you don't get close enough, or if you don't outside of a certain distance outside the village perimeter, you just don't see it. It's camouflaged, and it's a magical effect. So, like, oh, you just don't see it, and great. That would be one reason or one method by which it stays safe, kind of thing. But all those things cost points, and I want to give you or whomever or me, as if I'm going to go by these rules. And of course, I can always break the rules at any time. But I'm trying to make the framework flexible so you can make these different decisions and don't end up with some weird things. So what's got me in this kind of quandary is now the population, because my simplest system, which depending on how you end up working that, you buy, everything's point buy. So you would point buy for your population. If you look at it and say, well, if there's a village and it's in this dangerous swamp, and we need to have at least, I figure like, well, a magic user so much level, then that eats up all your points, and you don't have a village at all. You just have one guy. And if you can't get any of those people and you can't afford the spell, then it's like, well, then you're back to the original. Well, how the heck did this village get here? Here in the first place. Now, of course, you can just go outside the system and do whatever you want, but I'm looking at, well, within the system, how can we do this? Because those are the kind of tropes that I like. I like those kind of things. I want to be able to build up kind of by the book something else. Oh yeah, that's how it works. Okay, so with the points, so we got kind of three. So the first one, originally I just had this as sizes. It's basically small, medium, large. Small, medium, large, what is it? Then I kind of changed it to minor, less, or greater, because I want to have the idea that it might be powerful but small, or weak and large. You might have tons of people here, but they're all HD 1, and it's not particularly, whatever. So I wanted to kind of differentiate between some that may be and how you spend your points. If you spend a bunch of points on a few really powerful people, then that's still a greater community, even though it takes a smaller size. So I like having those things separate, but now I'm thinking I want to maybe bring in magnitude and size in terms of magnitude for kind of what's the highest level thing you have here. And then size is how many people, basically that kind of like what's the minimum and maximum amount of people you have. And that will help because then you can just pick and say, well, it's a, small, it's a small size village, but it has a magnitude greater because it's a small village that's filled with 8th level magicians. It's like, well, that's formidable, but it's just doesn't have a lot of people in it, kind of thing. Or you could have like, well, this is a big city, but it doesn't, there's nobody over level 2 in this city. So I'm still grappling. I am and have been kind of grappling with that piece of it. And I'm just not sure how to do it. But looking at these different materials does give me some ideas. I think, ultimately having some kind of pyramid, I think makes sense, just as a general rule, which you can obviously always break. Angry says, why not base points regardless of size with bonus points based on size? Yeah, I could do that. There's a few different ways. There's a couple things. Like I'd like to try to keep the math kind of simple, and but yes, I've thought about that too. Of just saying, well, hey, you have this many people, and just get bonuses for size. But yes, that is definitely an option. I'm just trying to get my and the thing is though, I guess, is that so the thing is that I'm trying to decide is basically, so I started this off kind of on this non-combatants thing, trying to figure out, well, because with the towns and things, with like communities, I don't care so much. I don't know how much, and I'm not sure people care so much on buying out, peasants, things like that. Technically, they cost a point, but I don't want to have to really buy those unless I make the numbers large enough, which I could, that you just kind of get enough of that. So I do like I think having some kind of pyramid thing where I talk about your sort of tenants or peasants / tenants. Maybe I'll just use tenants who are kind of your everyday sort of working the land or just, working. And then maybe here we're in sort of the retinue territory. Maybe it's tenants and then retinue. If we were to calculate this up, we have 12 peasant houses and we had, but they're, 12 houses. So like 60 people. That's a good thing. Let's just, whoops, I did it again. Let's go back here and let's see. Let's just look at quickly. No, not that. If we just happen to say, all right, so we have 60 tenants. We have the retinue ends up being 15. 1 lord. Does that math turn into any? Oops, I said 12. 1 lord. Oh, I keep doing that. What's wrong with me? 60 tenants to 15 to 1. And, this is just rough numbers. So 60 to 1 is fine. But then what can we glean out of every how many? 15 to 60? I don't think the 60, 15 going to 60. I don't think so. Does it? Might actually. I don't know. Oh, it's 4. Ho ho. So all right. Okay. So maybe look at this. Say, oh my gosh, keep doing it. Maybe we could say. So we have 1 lord. All right. Sorry. For every 4 tenant houses, 1 retinue. So then we get it. All right, so let's just try that as a general thing. So Hangry Dwarf says tiers of purchases. Yes, though I'm just worried. So this is all about stocking hexes for the dungeon master, not necessarily goods and services in these. But I do like that idea. I mean, I like my villages. So I have a pretty specific sense of villages have no goods and services at all. It's farmers and then some kind of strong point that some kind of lord type authority figure has. All villages do is they produce resources. That's it. So usually farming, but it could be mining, anything that's a raw materials. That's it. Villages, raw materials. So there's no goods and services there. You might find an alewife, or there are, well, I should say no services, like no commercial services. You might have, you can have a miller, you might have folks like that, but they are, it's bartering, right? The miller's there, takes your grain, keeps a little bit, gives you back the ground grain, that kind of thing. There's basically no like, oh, let me go to the bowyer and stuff, like not there. They are either controlled by the Lord, right? They're in the castle, they're part of the Lord's thing, so you got to deal with the Lord, or you got to go to town or wait to kind of market kind of thing. Or you kind of can do, and I think for the most part, I imagine back in those times that probably somebody who had just sort of a rough bow could probably service their bow, for the most part, unless it absolutely breaks or something. They're not doing it for, they're not going to a pro for them, for that. I'm not exactly sure, but that's kind of that's sort of my what I'm doing with that. So okay, so we end up with something like for every 4 tenant houses, 1 retinue. And then we can price out the retinue actually, and then we could do some math on that. So let's just see what that looks like. So going back to our example here, if we start off with 117 tenant houses, we roll that into our calculator, we get 117, and this is going to be too big. I need to reduce the potential number here, but we'd end up with, right, divided by 4. So we'll say 29 retinue. And then we could make some things like, right, and then you can have some good kind of numbers. So for every 10 men at arms, 1 sergeant kind of thing. Hey, Jason, I'm probably wrapping it up shortly, but working on a lot of fiddling around with community sizes and what that means for, how would I even explain this? Community sizes and what that means for basically the people part of it, because I have these sort of very generic sizes, and I'm trying to figure out kind of what it means for people, and then how much of that, when we're generating one of these via the hex stocking, is what is the stuff you're paying for versus kind of what comes free. And maybe you just pay for everything, and then you do that. So maybe we don't do, let's see if we do this differently. So this was in houses. This was in actual tenants. Right? Not houses. Let me just make sure chivalry and sorcery isn't fooling me. I'm sure it says somewhere. Hopefully it says it near where these tables are. Fell on the floor. Okay. Okay, so what does it say? Designing a feudal nation, the fief. Decide how many great lords. Okay, so what about smaller things? I need the smallest of the small. I'm not looking for the big. It says designing a feudal nation. I got that. All right. It says. Okay, so decide how many great lords. That's fine. We got some things, barons. We'll see what it says about barons because they're pretty small. Since all the baronial holdings are determined by one of the above. Okay, characters. Yeah, that's fine. I'm looking for the baronets, landed knights. They don't say really too much about it. Oh, let's see. The number of towns and size. They don't really say. I'm just looking to see if they're talking about households or actual people. They say men, so I'm going to assume that they don't mean houses, that they mean actual people. Right? Because then you get to towns. Yeah, I'm guessing, okay, I'm guessing this, I guess these are actual people. I'm going to assume for our purposes, actual people. So, minor community, but that's the minorest of the minor. So it starts off as 60. What's the next level? The next level. So it goes basically, I'm just going to count at the large one. It's basically 200. So we go from 60 to 200, basically. So the range is 60 to 200 homes. And we can foots with those numbers again. But maybe I gotta do times 10 instead of times 20. And then I have to do, let's just do 40. 46 times 10. So you end up with a spread. Well, then you can get 60. You just can't get less than 40. Which I think is okay, right? So 46 times 10 house. I think actually that works pretty well because the 4, that's a good number for us. 4. Because for every 4 tenants of retinue, so they get 1, so they'll have at least 1. Right? At least 1. And then we're doing these times 10s instead. What would we say for the next level? What is chivalry and sorcery? I should just keep this book open, but it is also falling apart. Okay, so the next level up, which I'm going to say Castle 1, is, well, they have baronial holdings. That's 400 to 1400, something like that. So we had basically 400 to 1400. All right, well, let's just actually, we can just do that. Let's just take the same number, and now we will just multiply it by 100. And then that ends up max at about 20. If we get the 2400 would be the, right? 4 times 6, 24 times 100. 2400 would be our max out. And then if we wanted to get more than that, we could end up at what? 2d6 times. I mean, I don't even know because you can get as high, get as much as you want, but Maybe get 1,000. $36 times 1,000 plus. Yeah. Yeah, because that leaves about 2,400 would be the most, and this starts at 3,000. That's fine. And then make more. It's just we're just trying to get to a general spot. So that's fine. I'm gonna have to move these around. I'm gonna have to insert. Methinks I'm gonna have to insert a page for sure. I'm definitely gonna have to insert a page. Yeah, I'm gonna have to insert. Sure, 2 after page 6. Yeah, we'll do that. I can. Yeah, all right. I think we're actually gonna move this stuff over. I don't think I'm gonna be. All right. Now we're actually gonna call this base populations. I probably will end up. You know what I think I need to do is I think I need to do. Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to separate out communities from coverts. Doing them both at the same time just seems like I'm just asking for trouble. Am I uppercasing my? Like I'm not. I did there. Yeah, I think that's a good. So we're going to get rid of this. Now let me copy this table over, I suppose. Yeah, let's take this, copy it, and we'll shove it down here. That way I can come in here now. And I can get rid of this column. Great. Great. So we're going to solve tenants. Oops, hold on a second, folks. Yeah, I got to get this as my daughter. If it's my daughter and I got to go get her, I got to log off, obviously, but we'll see how it goes. Let me mute here for a sec. All right. It looks like here is the end. Just when things were getting good, I got to log off. I got to go pick up my daughter. So we will continue with this. Maybe tomorrow. We'll see. Unless I can get my act together prior to that. But having gone through a bunch of stuff, I feel like maybe this will be good. So, or at least it's been fruitful. We'll see how much. We'll see how much ends up with use. How we'll see how much ends up being ultimately usable. But I like where our head's at. I like what we're doing. So I got to run. But thanks for hanging out and helping me with inspiration and whatnot. Happy Monday. Game on, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye now.